Welcome to the Samson Strength Coach Collective. On today's episode, we have Yolanda Berryhill coming to us from Texas A&M University, where she works with women's basketball. This was a fantastic conversation where I think we touched on issues that really matter within sport that directly affect how we relate with our athletes and exactly how our athletes interact with the world. So Yolanda has her basketball performance collective, which we speak about, which is her passion project, and it was fantastic to dive into that. And then again, the issues of race and sex within sport and how we interact with people and how we develop relationships with the athletes that we work with. So I'm really excited to dive into this one. I thought it was a fantastic conversation. I know you as the listener will love it as well. As always, thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy. What's going on, Samson Strength Coach Collective listeners? On today's episode, we have Yolanda Berryhill, head strength and conditioning coach for women's basketball at Texas A&M University. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Well, I'm excited to get to it. First of all, you got great energy, just us talking in the room right before you came in here. But then to find out former App State employee, strength coach is very exciting. I love App State, and it's always good to hear when other people like App State as well too. So I'm excited to dive into your career.
Yeah.
Oh,
Let's start with App State, right? I mean, it was
perfect.
my first full-time job back in 2013, and it was a time. It was a time. I was immersed fully. I was director of Olympic sports, so track and field, basketball. I want to say I had golf, softball. You know how it goes,
Yep.
and grew a lot there. And then from App State, I got to SMU. And then I started to really kind of get my niche kind of with women's basketball. So I had basketball and tennis there. I was there for about the same amount of time, 16 to 19. And then from there, I went back home to Georgia, Georgia Tech specifically, and women's basketball. That's it. And now I am here at Texas A&M with women's basketball.
That's awesome. Well, let me ask you this, because I've gotten this question a lot recently from people who kind of reach out and specifically want to get involved with basketball. Like, how did you kind of find your niche within women's basketball? I think it's a different story for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think it's kind of like a lot of things that I hold true to, right? You do the work, you put the work in, you don't, always turn the shoulder to shoulder and try and look for someone to affirm you. You just keep working, and then opportunities arise from that. Right? When you are a strength coach and you know and you understand periodization, movement, athletes, relationships, a lot of doors open. And I don't know if I set out to truly be women's basketball. Hell, I don't even know if I set out to be a director, but I think the work just spoke for itself and opportunities and doors open. And, the thought of going back home, specifically Georgia, was extremely enticing without it being basketball. And so it just kind of worked out for me. And I love it.
Yeah, well, it's hard to explain sometimes too. Like when I tell people, like it's a different kind of strength and conditioning job than what you would typically see, especially with basketball. On the Olympic side, usually you're going to have 3 or 4 teams, right? And then on the football side, you're usually going to be an assistant for a long time before you become a head strength coach. It's just a typical process. But I feel like basketball, it's like you get thrown right into being the head strength coach, and you just get to experience basketball as a whole, and you travel with the team and follow the structure of basically the sole strength and conditioning coach for that team, obviously. So what drew you to basketball specifically?
I love basketball. I love it. When I was growing up, my entire family played it, right? We all had the number 32. And so when I got to middle school and was of the age to play rec sports, it was always basketball. That was my family sport. And then I so happened to be really good at it. And so, and along with being, pretty good at basketball, I was also pretty good at my events in track and field. And it just grew from there. Sports has always been just a part of my life. And between track and field and basketball, at some point I talk about it, touch it, do something that revolves around those two sports every day, if you ask me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's awesome. I've truly learned to love the game of basketball. If this tells you what my skill level is whatsoever, if you talk about the number, I would pick 00, 1,000% of the time. So that's how bad I am.
Why double zero?
I don't know, something that's so appealing about it to me. I don't know
Okay.
what it is. I think they had a player, I can't remember his name right now because I grew up in Syracuse and he played for Syracuse and he was double zero for a year.
Okay.
And so
Okay.
I remember liking the number, and then I just like being different than everybody, right? And so nobody chooses double zero. So for me, that's exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. You will be correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll be correct. You'll be correct.
Which is a nice
Okay.
way to say that it's a crazy idea. But
Yeah. Go
um,
ahead.
well, let's dive right into this because there's a lot of topics I really want to touch on with you. The first one is exactly what you got on your shirt right there, right? The Basketball Performance Collective. Can you talk to me about the genesis of it, the first couple years that you've been running it, and then what's the mission behind it?
So it's more so of a passion project. I definitely didn't set out on this journey um, to think that it was going to be some big profit or to say, oh, this is my side gig or my hustle. It's truly just to not feel like I'm a part of the problem. Right. So for a long time, it was for me, right? It was like, oh, we don't have this on the women's side, da, 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 this and that, A through Z. And I just felt like I was part of the problem. I'm still here sitting here complaining and doing nothing about it. Nothing about it.
Mm.
And so one day I just said, you know what, I'm gonna do it. It was a little scary. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know what to do, but it's I've seen people do it. I've reached out to people who have put on clinics, who have done these things. And so I just said this is the best year to do it. Because I started it my first year. I'm going into my third year, but my first year it was in Dallas, the Final Four. And so I was like, well, being at A&M, I'm driving distance. This is the best time to start. There's no time that's better. And I think that proved to be true. So kind of to backtrack a bit, passion project, I wanted to provide some type of educational platform for not just string coaches, right? We sit and talk to each other all the time. But in reality, these athletes are being touched by more than just string coaches. They're being touched by, sports scientists, nutritionists, sports psychologists, sport coaches, the whole gamut. And so I wanted to provide something that mirrored that type of holistic approach. And so I'm not just offering people to listen to just string coaches. I'm offering sports psychologists. I'm offering professional, collegiate, high school string coaches, or even financial opportunities. I did something like that too. So I wanted to be more holistic. And so I set out on this venture to provide something during the women's Final Four every year, wherever it's located. Find a venue, get about 4 to 5 speakers in between the days of the games. So Final Four is on a Friday, championship games on a Sunday. I hold my clinic on that Saturday. And it's been very promising. It's the long game, right? Kind of, it's the long game. So to expect that this is going to blow up after 2 years is insane to me. But I think that as it continues on and you continue with quality and you continue to give people something that they can take with them, I think it'll be phenomenal. And it's not just to stand on the legs of now women or this trend. It's to stand on something that I think has always been the case and now people are now noticing.
No, absolutely. And first of all, I love your biggest point, which is not listening just to other strength coaches, because I think it's so easy to call up. I was calling another strength coach this morning, right? And we were talking about a problem that he had, and he was just complaining to me, and I was like, man, I wouldn't put up with that, right? And there was no solutions. It was more of just like two strength coaches looking at it, right? And it was a problem that he had with another staff member and somebody on the performance team. And so probably, he's just calling me to complain and maybe he wasn't looking for a solution, right? But if he was looking for the solution, it'd be best to probably talk to somebody who can see things from their perspective. And so I think at the end of the day, like, I'm nothing without our athletic trainer. I'm nothing without our dietitian. Like, the big thing that I can do is body transformations. That's what our coaches like about what I can provide. I'm telling you this, if I didn't have the dietitian here, I'd be, SOL. I'd have nothing, right? Because at the end of the day, if they're not eating, they're not getting these things done. And so it just goes hand in hand with injury return. It goes hand in hand with mental performance. I think all those things are collective, like you have exactly within your, name. I think it's important to hear from multiple viewpoints. So I love that about the collective.
Yeah, thank you, Con.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And so, when you first started out, you said it was a passion project. Like, what would your advice be to strength coaches who think about doing these things? Whether it's, starting a podcast, doing the collective, like, I feel like I talk to a lot of coaches and they have fantastic ideas, but the action piece is always kind of missing. What would
Mhm.
you say to kind of entice them to follow that?
It's the enticing part of all of this is afterwards when you look back and you see how much people enjoyed it. You build connections, you get to know more people, your bandwidth widens. I mean, I think just the reward, low risk, high reward.
Mm,
If you can really grasp the fact that you can have a high reward, then I think anyone can do it. You know, again, right? It's about expectations. Am I breaking the bank? Absolutely not. I'm in the red, okay, Connor. I'm in the red. You know what I mean? But it's okay. Like I'm not making money. I'm not necessarily losing it either. But I'm providing something that I know helps other people,
mm,
right? And in turn, as whatever this landscape is changing to, being able to continue to have conversations will help us out tremendously.
mm.
So I just think that for people, got to put the excuses to the side, because that's what I had. I just had excuses. Oh, I got basketball. Oh, I got this. Oh, I got this break, so I'm just spend my time here unbothered. But in reality, it's low risk. I mean,
Yep.
and it's the reward is worth it. The reward is worth it.
Because I guess like what really is the risk, right? Like you have an empty room at the Final Four, and that sucks, But at the
Yeah,
end of the day, somebody's still going to be there,
somebody's gonna be there.
Somebody's
You're
going
gonna
to get something from it.
Right. Everybody has their network, right? There's gonna be people that want to support you. So you're gonna have some people in the room, but you gotta be willing to kind of hit the obstacle, hurdle over it, jump over it, crawl under it, whatever that looks like. But you'll be fine. And you come on the other side and you'll be like, man, I'm happy I did that. And that's how it feels. That's how it feels.
Well, it gives you something else too, right? Like I love coaching. I think being a strength coach is fun, right? I wouldn't have done this job if it wasn't fun. But at the end of the day, when I've got 4 separate groups in a day, sometimes I'd be lying if I'd say I'm really hyped up for the fourth group, right? And so
Mhm.
something from a different motivation, something I can spend my energy on, that kind of excites me is those outside passion projects. And I've noticed it makes me a better coach because I'm not thinking about those groups 24/7, right? And I'm not thinking about this exact team 24/7. And giving me a break from it, I feel like actually makes me a better coach for those players.
Yeah, yeah. It's a new realization for you, right?
Mm,
Um, to be able to know you can still do something and inspire not just the youth, but maybe even other colleagues, or other strength coaches, or maybe you give them something that they didn't think about. To me,
mm.
that is so rewarding, right? Just so rewarding.
That's how you get better, right? Is when you hear something you never thought about before,
You never
and
thought about it,
yes,
or it's a refresher, and you're like, "Dang, wow,
yeah,
that's great," And so or it confirms or validates something that you're already doing. It's and you build a network, man. Come on, you
yeah.
build a network. It's awesome. It's
Well,
awesome.
that confirmation piece is huge with basketball as well too, because you kind of are on an island, right? Like you've got your network, but I've got 5 coaches I'll reach out to at least once a week, or just send them a text or something funny, right? But like at the end of the day, like those 5 coaches are all going to have the same opinions. Like they're not really going to change that up a lot, right? So for
Yeah,
you to create something like this collective where other people can discuss it with brand new coaches who they've never met before, right? And they can feel out brand new opinions instead of hearing from the same 5 voices all the time. It's invaluable.
yeah, yeah. So rewarding. You got it, Connor. You got it. You
Yeah.
got it. You got it.
I love the emails afterwards too, right? Like all those,
Yeah,
if I ever get it, like, oh, that was a great podcast. I'm like, oh, thanks for listening. At least
yeah.
somebody's listening, right?
That's
So,
awesome. Somebody's getting something. Yeah.
yep. And so you touched on it just a little bit with the women in sports, but like when the term women in sports comes up to you, what comes to your mind? Like what's the importance for you?
You I definitely don't want to get on this tangent because I get off
No,
topic,
you go
but
right ahead. I'd love to.
but it's for me, it's a little bit personal, right? Growing up in a very small country town in South Georgia, about 45 minutes from the Florida line, um, watching my mom, my sisters, my family, it's the country. It's a closed mindedness that people don't realize they have, and with that comes some old stigmas, right? Women should be here. They should stay in this box. Men should do this and they should stay in this box. And I guess I never really understood how I felt about it until I got older. And unfair doesn't really seem like the best word, but not having the same opportunities as just my male counterparts, when maybe I know as much, maybe I know more, maybe I have some type of skill set that's needed that is not even seen because I am a female.
Mm.
Uh, being in this profession as a strength and conditioning coach, being judged in terms of, okay, can you really coach men? Can you coach this sport if all you've had was, I don't know, softball or volleyball? Those things came across my plate a lot. Even mentioning, you know, homophobia, right? Like these are things in our profession that are stigmas that are no longer, they are no longer,
Mm.
right? And I guess getting into the position that I am now, being at A&M, and I got here, and every single young lady on the team was Black, and I never had that before. And they all had different backgrounds, and getting to know them, kind of where they come from, um, and being in a place like College Station, and trying to just have them understand what that looks like. I mean, I got here in 2021. It was right after COVID, right? It was right
Mm.
after or during, right, all the racial upheaval that was happening. And so, personally speaking, I wanted them to realize that they were more than what they were, right? Or they thought they were. And then I thought about, if I'm thinking about this for my athletes who were between 18 and 23, what about the ones that are my age, right? What about the ones who probably are continuously getting, I say, mistreated or taking advantage of, or being kept in this box, or being in a room with the ceiling very, very low? How can I, in turn, try and give that back? And I felt like my impact was so small just being here. And so this is where this came from. This is where now being able to leave something better than I found it comes from.
Mm.
This is where I think what the long game looks like is coming from. Being able to support women who go to the Final Four, who attend these games, who have now come, or anyone who have now come to appreciate women in sports, right? And I just want to kind of lead that charge a bit in my own way. And that's kind of where it all came from, really. That's the passion project.
Well, absolutely, right, and I think there's a couple things that stick out to me, and the first is just an example I have from my position here. Is our athletic trainer is a Black woman here,
Mm-hmm.
and I love her to death. We get along fantastic, and she was upset with something that was happening with a coach that she was working with on another team before, and I just said, why don't you just communicate this stuff, right? Because like I have, as a white male, I have a free pass to kind of blow up on somebody if we're being super honest, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
she said, Connor, I can't go in and communicate it in the way that you think I should, because though I'll be seen as an angry Black woman, right? And then they just won't listen to me because of how I interact with them, right? And so it was just one of those small examples to me that just showed me it is a completely different lens that I look at life through, right? And so my experience with women's basketball has allowed me to kind of broaden my lens, and I'll truly never understand what it feels like because it's not the life I live. But at the same time, it's really shown me how important it is for women in sports to have just equal opportunities, like you say. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
have to be the exact same things, but just equal opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
And then to incorporate race within that as well too. It's a whole different level, and that's where the intersectionality comes in. I think it's important that these things are talked about. So I appreciate you bringing that up on the podcast, because
Mm-hmm.
it's again, it's something that you don't really realize until you have those experiences as a white male myself, right? Speaking with other people, once I can get their perspective, it really shows me a lot of different things, things that I've missed or things that I've glanced over throughout my entire life that are just easy, right, for me to just look over because of how my life is different.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk about with your players specifically, like what do the conversations look like with them? And you even brought up, you said what they think they are versus what they are. Like, what does that
You
look
know,
like?
yeah, it was so eye opening for me, getting here, because they were in just a tough spot. I got here with a Hall of Fame head coach, Gary Blair, and it was his last year. So I knew what I was doing was a risk. I came from Georgia Tech, after going to the Sweet 16 and then coming to Texas A&M. What I'm pretty sure, it wasn't announced, but I was pretty sure it was probably Gary Blair's last year.
Hmm.
And at that point, coming here, I'm like, well, to our earlier point, do such a good job where you cannot be denied, and just opportunities happen, whether it's here or somewhere else, right? And so when I came here and I met with the ladies for the first time, how they looked at me wasn't how they looked at everybody else, because I looked the same as them. And it was very astounding to me as I looked through the team and saw them staring at me like, oh, you are a black woman. I've never seen a female a strength coach, but let alone a black strength coach, female strength coach. And to me, I immediately felt like a responsibility or a duty. Should I have? I'm not sure, but I felt that, right? And so when people ask me, do you regret going to A&M knowing that you probably was gone the first year? No, because I knew it was necessary for me to be there at that point. And it wasn't even about basketball for them. They were phenomenal basketball players, you know? I just think they were confronted with things that they haven't been confronted with before, or having to deal with things and think about things that they never had to deal and think about before. And so I just became a soundboard for them to just listen to them, you know, help them figure out their own belief system and what that looked like and what they, you know what I'm saying, how they carried themselves. And I think that was something that they didn't have before, you know. Because, yeah, we could talk about strength and conditioning, but that's the easy part, kind of, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're in this position. That's the easy part. I can coach you up. I can do those things, but being able to build a relationship that goes beyond that, in terms of helping these young ladies mature and kind of just be more self-aware, hands down, that's the best part.
Yeah.
That's the best part.
Well, I mean, exactly like you said, it's something bigger than coaching, right?
Yeah.
It's not just about the X's and O's at that point. It's about people living the rest of their lives, right? And people, they're going to continue to be athletes, and they're going to continue to be black female athletes past this point in their career. So it's important for them to be able to have somebody to speak to, right?
Yeah.
And have somebody who can understand where they're coming from. Because I've noticed it myself. There's some conversations I can't speak to. You know, especially when I was working with women's basketball here last year. Like, there were certain issues that all I knew was to say I support you, and I want to support you in whatever way I can. But there's certain things that I can't tell you because I don't have that experience, right?
Yeah.
You know, for other coaches, like, is this something that the Basketball Performance Collective touches on? Is there other things that coaches can look into if they're experiencing kind of the same thing that you've experienced?
I mean, you know, humans are a phenomenal thing, right? They get on your nerves, you can't stand them, but you love them all the same.
Yeah.
And so I just think having people around you, putting people in your space that you know, that you can speak to about strength conditioning, about life, about all of these things, and challenge you and give you different perspectives. I think those are the people you want to keep around, right? Perspective is a beautiful thing, right? And we control how we see the world and how we respond to things. So if you put people around you that can at least challenge your perspective in the best way, right? In a harmless way, but challenge you, listen to you, bounce ideas off of. I mean, it's a beautiful thing. You got to keep the people. Everything's an extension of you, right? The people around you, the people you talk to, the 5 coaches you hit up, you know, once a week, whatever that looks like. Those are your people, right? So are those people continuing and allowing you to be yourself and allowing you to grow? That would be my question. You know, that would be my question.
The realest conversation I ever had was when a mentor of mine told me I was the one who was messing up. Right. And I like to complain, but he was like, "No, dude, I think this one's on you." Right. But it changed the trajectory of my career. Seriously, at the end of the day, I stopped looking at things through a lens of how are other people making a mistake versus how am I making a mistake, and make sure my side's good before I get upset. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times my side probably wasn't good. Right. And I was just getting upset because I was being a baby about certain things. So,
and we're human, right? And it's
Yep.
not saying that we're perfect, but it's saying, like, hopefully somebody can say, hey, look, get your stuff together. All right. This is temporary. It will be over, XYZ. Right. So, yeah, to keep those people around you, you know, that's part of being a good team, right? Being a good teammate.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
1,000%. We always talk about accountability on our team. We don't want to hold people accountable, right? It's the players who hold each other accountable. That's where their teams are going to be successful.
Yeah. Hands down. Hands down.
So what year is this now at A&M?
I will be going on year 4 at A&M right now.
Okay. So year 4 versus year 1 with this relationship development aspect. What are the things that have changed? What are the things that have grown?
Well, being in this league in the SEC, the team has changed. I mean, the team is different. You know, those ladies that I came in with are they're no longer here. Maybe 2 of them, and everybody else is gone. Mm-hmm. So the team is definitely different. And every year seems to be different, right? Every year, we get these new ladies in, whether they're transfers or whether they're freshmen. And it can change, it changes the dynamic. And I just think that year 1 to year 4, still the same here, right? Team looks different. Standards are still the same. But I think the big difference is now those 2 ladies that were here year 1, they know exactly what to expect, right?
Mm.
So they come in, really strengthening that relationship with those ladies and allowing them to now lead those other ones who are coming in has been tremendous,
Mm.
right? Like I can come in and I can see an athlete talking to a freshman or talking to a transfer, and they're taking them through something that they know they should do. Long game. It's working out for me. It's working out for me. So it's
Well,
working out. There you go. It's working out for me. Year 1 to year 4.
that's awesome, but that's the best part of the job, right? Is to watch people actually grow,
Yeah.
and to see them make changes, right? And sometimes we get disappointed, and sometimes we'll be really excited about it, right? Because there's momentary. I think for me, there's momentary disappointments, right? When I watch people grow, because it's like, man, I thought we were over this, right? I thought we were over the missing class, or being late to meetings and things like that, right? And then it'll happen every once in a while. But then when you look at it from the big 4-year perspective, there's a massive difference, and then they're the ones who are leading the team. That was a big concern. We had a lot of guys leave the team this past year. We had 3 returners, right, coming back from this past year, this year. And my biggest concern was we had one player who he's an amazing player. Don't get me wrong, we want him because he's really good, but he's also a great dude, and he's somebody who can help support the team. And he's been with this program now for 5 years. And so if that's somebody who we can have in the locker room to help dispel the message to the younger people, right? And so like even just our conditioning sessions, like stupid stuff, like like he knows we've got freshmen over here freaking out about what we're going to do on the first day, right? And he's like, no, come on, Connor's not going to give you that on the first day. Like, this is probably what it's going to look like. And he's going to be about 95% right, because I'll maybe change a couple things up, right? But those people are extremely valuable to the team. And as the strength coach, being able to watch them grow and watch them not be the one who's freaking out anymore and be the one who's calming them down is the best part of the job, in my opinion.
That's beautifully said. Yep. You were freaking out, and now you're keeping everyone calm.
And now you're
Correct.
the one keeping them calm, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
And that's why I try to tell our interns now too, because you can see they're still freaking out on a lot of stuff, right? Or like the number one questions I always get is about programming from the younger coaches. It's like, how did you do your programming? Because that was the questions that I was asking. I'm sure the questions that you were asking is like, okay, like this is the only thing that's super controllable is writing my program. Like that's the one thing that I have 100% control over. And then what I really try to dispel to them is like, it's not about the 1 hour that they're with you. It's about the 23 hours that they're not with you. Like, does the message last? Right. And so I always think it's so funny to watch people just freak out about the programming or freak out about like, what does my in season look like versus off season? It's like, man, like if you're going to lift, you're going to get stronger. Okay. The human body is designed for that. So at the end of the day, like you should really be worried about the relationship development. You should really be worried about the things that you can't learn from a textbook, unless it's a sports psych textbook, right?
Oh, I'm not reading that one though, but yeah. I'm reading. In my 30s, I don't know if I'm reading textbooks anymore.
No.
Interns, tell me what the new text says. Yeah.
Yep. That was funny. Darby Rich, who I worked with at Texas Tech, he's been A&M. Yeah. He's awesome, and he just told me he was looking to hire an assistant at the time, and he was like, I just want a guy who knows sports science, right? Like I just like because that person's going to teach me because I don't want to pick up a single book on it. I'm done.
Hey, use your network, Darv. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's good.
exactly.
That's good. That's
so.
Good.
For you on the relationship development aspect, like what are the key things that you focus in on when you're trying to develop a relationship, and even from year 1 versus year 4?
It's one word for that one. There's one word for that one, and that is trust. That's it. And how I try to do that is to be absolutely honest with my athletes all the time. Yes, I will be your biggest critic, but yes, I will be your best hype woman. I will tell you when you were doing fantastic. I will tell you when you were doing awesome, but I will also tell you when you're being shitty. And I think there's a certain respect that they have for that, and I think that's honestly, it's as simple as that. Simply profound, because when they can trust that you're telling them the truth, when they're good, they're bad, when it's ugly, they find comfort in that. Regardless if they like it or not, they find comfort in it. And I'm trying to think of a quote that I heard. that sums it up, and I cannot think of it. I think it was actually came off of Game of Thrones. I can't think of I can't even think of it. But yeah, it's if I'm not being honest with them, it doesn't matter what I'm doing. It
Mhm.
doesn't matter.
Well, the honesty means more, right? When they know that you're gonna be real with them on everything, and so they
Mhm.
know if you give them a compliment, they actually earn that compliment instead of just saying, "Hey,
Correct.
you did a great job today."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I usually try to give them a compliment like once a semester. I don't want to give them too much.
Well, you can't juice them up because then they
Yeah,
get too
yeah. Then they start
excited.
cutting up. Then I just be mad. So
Yeah, then it's just miserable, right? And it's yeah.
then it's just miserable. Right, right,
Yeah,
right.
we had a guy come in, hit his weight for his weight go on. I was like, "Man, you did a fantastic job. I'm proud of you." Right? Came back the next day down 3 pounds. I said, "Awesome." So as soon as you get a compliment, the foot is off the gas. Right? We're just gonna
Correct,
let the car
correct.
coast. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, they're 18 to 23-year-olds. I mean, what do we expect?
Yeah, absolutely right. Because I would
Hmm.
do the exact same thing. I get one compliment, I think I'm good. Right?
Yeah,
I'm good for
yeah.
the
I'm good.
rest of
All
the
right.
year.
Hey, you good? Don't
Yeah.
forget it. Right, right, right.
Well, and so as that trust develops, like when it's somebody who's in their year 4, right? Because there's still a relationship development aspect, and I don't think people really still talk about that. Like, what does that trust start to look like when it's year 4 for that athlete? Because they know you're gonna be honest, they know that they trust you.
As I'm thinking about my athlete right now, she well, she thinks she knows everything, right? So she's like, "Oh, it's day one. Oh yeah, coach, are gonna give us the circuit. It's gonna be, 2010 or 2020." Like she, to your point, she's about 95% right.
Yeah.
So I think they have their intention is their intentionality about things is fortified. They understand what I am looking for. The expectations are clear, right? There's more clarity for them. They're a little bit more self aware. They want to do better. It's the last year
Mm,
from now without the COVID stuff, but it's the last year. So there's a certain type of purpose I think that's there, and there's a certain type of standard that they know has always been there, and now they're more comfortable and confident in keeping that standard is what I am noticing from my 4th years. Right, it's like, okay, we've been through this, we know. To your point, I'm bringing, the other day I walked in, she had one of our underclassmen with her, practicing for things that she know we're going to face when we're in preseason.
mhm,
And I think that's remarkable. Like, that's what I see. I just see, young women that are maturing. I see young women that are more self-aware. I see young women that are more confident. And that's what we build, right? Most times as a strength coach, we do all these things so you can be confident, so you can have a certain type of understanding that you can get through whatever you need to get through when the time comes, right? Repeatedly, over and over and over again. So I think for those 4th years, it's more confident. They're more confident, know what to expect. They have a little more attention about them. They're more purposeful with their actions, and I think that's probably the biggest thing.
Hey, man, yeah, I keep saying everything's the best part about the job, right? Because there are a lot of great part about the job,
Yeah,
but like,
yeah.
I mean, this is so cool, right? And like even on days because I've got letters posted from players and everything on the wall, right? And like, I don't have them up there just to when somebody walks in and be like, "Oh, people like Connor." Like, I have them up there because I read them. Like on days when I really like am tired and my battery is low, like I look at those, right? And I even read one this morning, and it was from a former player, and she's like, "You changed the trajectory of my career with how you treated me," right? And I think that's just so much fun to again see that progress, but then to see the confidence truly build up, especially on the women's side, right, where it's a completely different scenario on the confidence level. I think confidence is lower when you work with women's athletes, if we're being real, because I think, like you
Mhm.
said, there's always been a box, and there's always been, okay, you belong in this specific area, and don't shoot too high, right, for what you're looking for. And then at the end of the day, it's like, nah, it's bullshit. Like, you really
Mhm.
should be whoever you want to be and who you truly are. And so I
Mhm.
think seeing the confidence grow is always so exciting to me.
Yeah, it's a lovely thing, man. It's a
Yeah.
lovely thing.
Yeah.
Lovely thing.
Well, and then one more thing that we talked about, kind of pre-show was the high performance system that you mentioned, and so you said you one of your skills is building the high performance system. So can you just break down to me what a high performance system is to you, and then what goes into it?
Yeah, you know, with a high performance system, I think it's something that we're still maturing here, right? We got here the first year. We had Gary Blair and transitioned to Joni, who retained me, and now going on my 4th year. So I think that is something that's still maturing. But I also think because we have so many people that are great in the position that they're in. So, for example, we have Bo Sandoval, who's our director. He's phenomenal. I mean, how he does and how he thinks, his perception of our field, I think, is different, but it makes a ton of sense. And so how he wants to structure things, I love it. I love it, right? Because you know how it is, we're basketball. Uh, but I think he has a system to where I don't feel like I'm left on an island.
Mm.
He and my other colleagues in the Olympic weight room don't feel like they never see me, right? So I do believe that he has such a great grasp on that part, on that internal piece, and the branches from that I think helps out in many ways, if that makes sense. But specifically for women's basketball, um, his efforts have allowed us to kind of, get more force plates. His efforts have allowed us to kind of equip our weight room with things that we feel that we need. And so we have so many pieces, right? It's another thing to my basketball performance collective is we have so many pieces in terms of athlete long-term development. We got all these different resources. It's A&M. Everybody loves talking about A&M and their resources, right? But Bo Sandoval said it best. He said, who cares about resources if we're not using them and utilizing them to how they can be utilized? It's like going into Walmart and all the shit's on the floor, right? They're off the shelves. It's great. We have everything we need here. But how do we get to it? How do we use it effectively, right? And so we had all these pieces when I came here, sports sciences, sports nutrition, sports science. We had all these pieces, but they were kind of scattered. They were like a little scatter plot. And so being able, again, to understand I am a strength coach, right? I'm none of those other things, but in order for us to be successful, we have to be on the same page, or we at least have to have some type of give and take, some type of system. And so we have a performance and wellness team that's composed of myself, sports science, sports nutrition, a coach representative. Also, we have a coach or an office representative on our staff that is in culture, player development, that will attend meetings, academics. So we have this performance and wellness team that we will problem solve through. We will get data through all the data measurements we get throughout the year, from DEXAs to sprints to our combine stuff, women's basketball combine, our combine stuff that we have. And we basically sit at the table, spread it all out. Okay, what do we have? Right, year to year, what do we need to do better? In real time, needs analysis. What did this young lady need? Is there a connection here? Hey, she's been doing pretty tough. Like, she's been doing not so great in the academic area. Okay, that makes sense because now this young lady is not performing well here. Okay, that sounds right because her trends have gone down recently, the past 4 months. So, okay, so we need to figure out what's going on. So those little things are so helpful. Again, 18 to 23, 17 to 23-year-olds. They ain't got shit figured out. Like, we got to help them. We have to help them, right? And so I think just those constant, continuous conversations, the discussions, the issues, the problem solving, the note taking, the trends, all of that matters in my mind. And if we're trying to give these young athletes everything possible to be successful and increase their longevity when they leave here, I think those things are important. And it doesn't mean that you have to have all these pieces. It just means that you need to have more conversations. Like, okay, we aren't the end all be all. We just aren't.
Well, for me, there's always been a resistance to adding more things in, right? Like the force plates or the NORD board or all the testing stuff that we do. There's, for me personally, because it's like, honestly, I think I was just not confident. I didn't really want to learn it, right? And so ultimately, everything I've added in more has provided value for the program. At the end of the day, even if it's just something on force plates of like, okay, here's your, counter movement jump. Are you going to get higher than Justin, who was just on the plates, right? Like just even small interactions, but then to see the data points that you talk about, those things provide a ton of value. When you look at relationships with other members in the high performance system, is it that same kind of relationship development aspect for you? Like the trust is the key piece?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Like, I have to trust that my nutritionist is having those needed conversations with young ladies that know they need to kind of manipulate or modify things within whatever they're eating or however it is to increase their performance, right? Like, I have to trust that she's doing that. I'm not a micromanager. I got too much going on, Connor,
Yep.
too much going on, right? I got to be on this podcast, there's too much going on. So I do need to trust that they're able to do their job. And I think also just being transparent. Like, hey, look, I messed this up. I apologize. I should have done it, and I did not. Right? Honestly, for me too. Right? Like just because I can get meetings together and take notes and send out trends, doesn't mean that I don't make mistakes. Right? So
Mm,
it's open and it's honest and it's challenging, and I think that's why we get better.
mm. And that accountability piece is huge too. And I think people forget it. They expect it for the athletes all the time, but they forget it for the actual staff members.
Hmm. And it kind of makes things, I won't say easier, but when we sit in those huge women's basketball staff meetings with all the coaches and everybody in the room, it makes how we present information so much easier.
Mm,
And I think it gives the coach now a feeling of, oh, it okay, they got it together. That's awesome, right? And so
mm.
it's less of, okay, I got this and I got this. It's more so like we have this, or and that's a beautiful thing to sit in those meetings and just feel like we're on the same page.
Yeah. Well, the coaching staff can see staff united instead of divided.
Right, right, right.
Yep. There you go. Like this. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, that's awesome. I'm obviously a big believer in the high performance system, biased by my fiance being the dietitian. But at the end of the day, like, again, I don't think as strength coaches we're anything without those extra resources. There's a lot of things that we can
Mhm,
do, but there's a lot of limiters that we have on ourselves. And if you're not honest, I think accountability piece too is also being real with yourself about what you can and can't do, and what
mhm.
should be the job of other people whose job it is, and that they're going to do a good job with it.
Yeah, because honestly, Connor, if I didn't have Drew Smith, who was a phenomenal PhD fellow running our sports science and our data, I would have to hire somebody else to do it. Like
Yeah, yeah,
I know where my shortcomings are, right? I know what those look like. I know what systems I can handle, and I know what systems I'm gonna need some support in,
yep,
right? And that's just it. Like I'm gonna do, and I'm trying to keep everybody on the same page with things that we know and confident in doing,
yeah.
and that's it. That's
And
it.
everybody's on the same page, right? And
Trying,
everybody's a better
we try to
coach.
stay there,
Yeah.
but we are human, but we try to stay there.
As long as you're mostly on the same page, then it's good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely, and that's
yeah,
real life. That is real life.
that's exactly
You know?
it.
But yeah,
Well, awesome. Yolanda, thank you so much for coming on. I've really enjoyed my time, especially just getting to know you better, but then to understand exactly what your mission is and, like you say, your passion projects. And I'm glad that you were able to share that with us. So the next one's going to be Final Four, women's Final Four
yeah. I want to say it's in Phoenix.
in Phoenix. I think so.
I'm
I
in
think that sounds
Phoenix, and
right.
that'd be
Yeah.
nice. You should come, Connor.
Well, I'll be there. I mean, at this point, I've been directly asked. I got to go at this point. And
Yeah, yeah,
it
yeah.
sounds
Get your coach
fantastic
pays
to
for it.
me.
Be fine. Be fine.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Right. We can find. I'll just bring that up to the health and wellness director. By the
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
way.
yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Is there, if you would like anybody to check into the Basketball Performance Collective, is there any websites that they can look at or social media or anything?
Yeah, my social media, YoBerry32. That's IG. That's kind of what I use most times anyway. And
Awesome.
under that, I have a page that's dedicated for basketball performance collective, and a lot of information to be there.
Awesome. All
Mhm.
right. Well, everybody knows where to find you then.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.